Once upon a time, House of Cards was synonymous with great television. It had the perfect recipe for everything. It had A-list actors. It had award-winning potential. It had great drama, great plot. And it was at one point the flagship of Netflix. It was leading the charge when it comes to streaming television, and it set the bar. Like everything else that came after House of Cards always tried to ascertain the level of great television production, writing, plot, and overall enjoyability that House of Cards had. Granted, while some seasons were phenomenal, there were some seasons that weren't as phenomenal as the best of House of Cards, but it was always consistent and it was always a great television show to watch. However, recently the main character and one of the most famous actors in the world, Kevin Spacey, had a recent scandal, but we're not gonna dive too much into Kevin Spacey's scandal because we're here for House of Cards. And to be quite frank, no pun intended, House of Cards without the character Frank or Francis Underwood just isn't the same. Shit, House of Cards without Frank's kind of sucks. And that's no knock on the cast or the crew of the show, because Robin Wright as Claire is still phenomenal. Doug is a still phenomenal character. Like, we have some aspects that were phenomenal from the first season to currently. However, what held House of Cards together was Frank. It's his show. He is the main character. Essentially, we have pause. If you guys haven't seen House of Cards season 6 yet, I recommend you go watch it because I'm going to jump into some spoiler territory. Anyway, House of Cards season 6, they killed off Frank before the season started, due in part to Kevin Spacey's scandal, which, while I understand why Netflix did it, you have to distance yourself from that kind of thing because it's negative publicity to your brand. But when your best show revolves around this one character, in all aspects of it all, the show itself cannot work without Frank, and this season shows why. Because while the show still had the incredible production value, it still had the great actors and actresses, it was still overall House of Cards. It was missing Frank. It was missing the character of Frank. Disassociating him with Spacey, the character of Frank is the pillar of the show, and without him, it sucks. It really sucks. Like, there are so much things that the show built up to. This is the 6th season of House of Cards. Therefore, there's a lot of build up. The 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th season, all leading up to a climactic confrontation between Frank and Claire. But there's no Frank. You see what I'm saying? So without Frank, all we have is Claire with nothing to clash with. So in order to make the season somewhat enjoyable, Netflix cut it down from the usual amount of episodes to 8 episodes. Those 8 hours of television felt so long and drawn out that it was beyond me. It felt longer than the usual seasons because as House of Cards progressed, granted, like I said, not all seasons were as good as the pinnacle of the show, but there still was some sort of momentum moving it forward. With the departure of the main character and such a quick turnaround with the season, I can understand so many things going on. So let's dive into the story of season 6. Because in season 6, Claire is now president. Francis is dead, and now Claire is essentially the first woman president of the United States in this fictional universe. And okay, as an audience, okay, Claire's the first female president. I guess, I mean, that's cool and all, but that's not why we watch House of Cards. We don't watch House of Cards for what's going on. We watch House of Cards for the drama and the intrigue and the clash of titans, clash of wills, and to see who has a stronger will, who will propel. But this season was messy and incoherent, and it was confusing because we're introduced to a slew of new characters. The Shepherds, for example, are a new group, a new power couple that we've never heard of up until now. And granted, TV shows do that, but they seem to hold so much power. But at the same time, it's never that oomph that you have when Frank is involved. We have Claire Underwood. Robin Wright again is brilliant as Claire, but her monologues just don't do it like Frank's monologues. Her conniving just doesn't do it like Frank's monologue. Some of her plans and schemes were just flat out confusing. For example, one of her plots made her look incompetent and grieving, and it was as though everything around her was crashing down, and it was to make herself look weak to her enemies at the same time while she's securing herself. But as that happens, like, it's like the show builds up so many different things and they don't have proper conclusions, they don't have proper repercussions for their actions. I mean, the show jumped the shark. Claire is pregnant, for goodness sake. Like, House of Cards always had that shock, but it never did anything for pure shock value. And Claire being pregnant, like, the finale is essentially Claire and Doug having a knife fight while Claire is pregnant. I mean, the House of Cards really set the bar high. And for us to take shock value drama and lower the value of House of Cards just wasn't doing it for me. This season missed Frank. However, I would have preferred they canceled the season and just ended the series. If you ended at season 5, if you ended with that cliffhanger of if you ended in the final episode of season 5, that's a nice wrap up. But when you go into season 6 and you do so much things, introduce so many new characters, you resurrect certain characters just to kill them. Like there were characters who were presumed dead in House of Cards. They brought them back to life just to kill them and to show how badass Claire is. And granted, that's some cold shit on her behalf. Like Claire as a character is damn near colder and grimier than Frank. But at the same time, when you're missing that one pillar, when you build up one character so much so and another character right along with them, they're two halves of the same coin. Like Claire and Frank are two halves. Robin Wright, despite how great she is, could not carry House of Cards season 6 by herself without Kevin Spacey's Frank. And at the same time, I want to say this, Frank and Francis can't carry House of Cards by himself without Claire. It's two characters, two halves, two pieces of one coin that makes this show phenomenal. And without it, it was a letdown, it was boring, and it was overall trash. I mean, again, the production value is phenomenal, the acting is phenomenal, but the story was lackluster, but the story itself was trash. Like, let's be real and real. Like, I don't like calling out people who write shows and stuff because these people are probably a lot smarter than I am and they know how to create good shows. But I know good storytelling at the same time. I understand what makes a good story, and you don't just build up a character and ice them off and expect the story to have the same level of quality. I would much rather you have cut your losses and left that, because Netflix doesn't make money producing the show. So just pay the crew and just end it. Like, they weren't making, it's not like there's commercials in between these episodes that Netflix is making some sort of ad revenue. So putting this show out there and tarnishing what House of Cards was is terrible. Now, I understand there's more people involved in this than Kevin Spacey, but at the same time, it's his show. So without him, without the pillar character Francis, just let it go, let it burn. I mean, I would rather it have let it burn than have this terrible season that you have to slug through just to find out that, you know, after the final episode, just like, I guess I just watched it. I just used 8 hours of my life to watch this crap, I guess. And in doing that, they essentially tried to protect House of Cards from Kevin Spacey. And Doug, the character of Doug, had this interesting quote that I picked up in the show. And it said, I had to protect the legacy from the man. That's super meta if you think about it. Protecting the legacy of House of Cards from the man, aka Francis, aka Kevin Spacey. But at what point is the legacy tarnished? If he's tarnishing the legacy and then you add stuff and you devalue the legacy, aren't you essentially doing the same thing? I mean, but overall, House of Cards season 6, I mean, if you have already watched the first 5 seasons, you might as well finish it off. But if you weren't too fond of the final few seasons and you're thinking about seeing this or not seeing it, don't watch it. It's not worth wasting your time. Go watch something else. And that's my thoughts on House of Cards season 6. It kind of sucks. Anyway, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts about it in the comment section below, because this channel is all about conversation, and we are TV fans, we are movie fans, and we love to hear feedback from you guys, and I'm sure you guys love to hear feedback from me. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and if you like this video, definitely that thumbs up, hit the subscribe button if you guys haven't already, and until next time, binge on.